Hi guys, welcome back to Thursday Top Lessons. We are back with a fairly interesting topic, a world without work. A World Without Work by Daniel Susskind is a very interesting take on how automation is going to impact our lives. Over the last 100 years, the economic activity came to an explosive end. The amount each person produced increased about 13-fold, and the world output rocketed nearly 300-fold. If you look at the overall history, it all happened in the blink of an eye. This growth was propelled by sustained technological progress. Reasons are resources, cultural, which is our in general attitude towards science, and trust among communities, and the state protected property rights that enabled risk taking. Whenever we talk about automation anxiety immediately kicks in. In more productive countries, people tend to work fewer hours, like Germany. As you can see in the chart, we may not be settling into the 15-hour work week as the noted economist Keynes expected, but thanks to sustained technological progress, we've begun to drift in that direction. Whenever technology has come, it has come with two forces, the substituting force and the complementing force. The complementing force has led to three major effects. The productivity effect, that means a person can produce more. Bigger pie effect, that means the economy does find job for other workers. When wealth is created, people spend their money on something which basically creates more jobs. And the changing pie effect, that means new technologies have not only made the pie bigger but changed the pie too. 500 years ago, the economy was largely made up of farms. 300 years ago, of factories. And today, of offices. Between the years 1700 and 2000, the UK economy grew 113-fold, the Japanese 171-fold, Brazilian 1699-fold, and Australian 2300-fold. Economy, on the other hand, grew almost 8,000-fold, whereas the US economy a whopping 15,241-fold. That is the impact of complementing effect so far, which has always so far overpowered the substituting force. But if the complementing force was so strong, whom did it impact? The technological progress was sometimes skill biased and sometimes unskill biased. The traditionally plumb midriff of many economies, which have provided middle class people with well paid jobs, in the past are now disappearing. This is known as polarization or hollowing effect. There are now more high paid professionals and managers, as well as low paid care workers, cleaners, teaching and healthcare assistants, waiters, or hairdressers, but fewer middling pay secretaries and admin clerks. That is how technology has impacted us. But eventually, as technology grew, we came to a realization that technological progress was neither skill biased nor unskill biased, but task biased. This explains the middle class decline. Anything non standard was left for humans to consume, which is the high paid managers and the low paid care workers. The problem is that this hypothesis neglected the pragmatist revolution. Economists had earlier thought that to accomplish a task, a computer had to follow explicit rules articulated by a human being, which was the top down approach. We were setting the rules for machines, but no longer. The bottom up purist approach means that machines can now learn and derive their own rules. We just need to give them an objective, and they might just build their own rules going forward and learn from other machines on the network. Not just manual, cognitive and effective capabilities are increasingly being learned, and not just learned but bettered by machines. Funnily, the only risk to automation is immigration. The number of mechanical car washers in the UK declined by 50% from the year 2000 to 2015. In this case, cheaper human beings actually managed to displace machines. Relative costs explain why technological revolution is and will be unevenly spread across the world. The Industrial Revolution was British and not French, for a reason. In Japan is way ahead than other parts of the world because they have the largest elderly population in the world, combined with a well-known antipathy towards foreign migrant workers in public service. Going forward, this complementing force may not be greater than the substituting force. Why? Let us have a look at all the three effects that complementing force had. First, the productivity effect. Sat nav systems have enabled taxi drivers to navigate uncharted territory, making them better. But it will only be applicable till the time they are better at the wheel than the machines. So, the moment self driving cars become economically more viable, the productivity effect simply collapses. The pie indeed gets bigger, but it will only help humans till the time additional pie requires work that humans can do better than machines. Consider the output versus people involved in agriculture. The output has increased multifold, but the number of people deployed in agriculture has reduced considerably. Now let us look at the changing pie effect. Whatever happened to horses will happen to humans as well. As John Stuart Mill put it in the 19th century, demand for commodities is not demand for labor. So the pie may change, but as horses were redundant when cars came out, we may also be facing the same fate. Now, with this, it is also important to understand that over the last few decades, the labor share has shrunk and capital share is increasing. An ever diminishing part of that growth has flowed to workers via their wages. Instead, it has gone to the owners of traditional capital, which is physical assets and intellectual assets. After a certain age, further education is considered to be a sign not of productivity but of indolency and flippancy. This attitude will need to change. People will have to grow comfortable with moving in and out of education repeatedly throughout their lives. We will have to constantly re educate ourselves because technological progress will force us to take on new roles. Also, it will be needed as it is nearly impossible right now to predict what exactly these kinds of roles will be. As we approach a world with less work, we will have to become more comfortable with taxing inherited capital. Also, UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, might need to be worked. Daniel proposes something what he calls a conditional basic income or CBI rather than the UBI that exists today in the market. So, what exactly is this conditional basic income that Daniel talks about? There are few questions that need to be answered to make it conditional. What should be the admission policy? Only citizens get it, or anyone in that particular country gets it? As history tells us, deciding who is in and out of the community will be essential. Once admission policy is clear, we need to check if there is a membership policy. That means once you're eligible, how do you remain eligible? This is something that is missing in the UBI in current form. How does a person sustain receiving this income? Will there be work based tests? It will be a tough society to balance between contributors and receivers. Distributive justice, that means how do we allocate our resources in the society, and contributive justice, that means how to make everyone feel that their fellow citizens are giving back to the society, will be urgent and pressing issues to solve. Another way that he proposes could be distributing the traditional capital itself in the form of ownership of businesses. But not everyone has the resources nor the know how. A way to solve this could be state acquiring a stake on behalf of its citizen, as Norway has done it with its fund of $1 trillion. But fine margins have to be kept in mind between state ownership and state control over businesses. But why are we talking so much about work if incomes and asset allocation have to be worked about? There is another angle to look at work. It's not just about purely economic perspective. There is pride, meaning, and purpose attached to one's profession as well. With this viewpoint, the threat of technological unemployment will deprive people not only of their income but also of significance. It will hollow out not just the labor market but also the sense of purpose in many people's lives. The biggest example of this is LinkedIn, which started as a networking tool for people to find new jobs, is now used by some to broadcast how successful they are and how hard they are working. Religion, as Karl Marx put it, is the opium of people. But religion no longer dominates everyday life in the way it once did. It has been replaced by work, the work that we do. For some, it provides people with a pleasurable burst of pride, of purpose. But at the same time, it intoxicates and disorientates, distracting us from looking for meaning elsewhere. As Keynes put it, there is no country and no people, I think, who can look forward to the age of leisure and abundance without a dread. For we have been trained too long to strive and not to enjoy. He says that in a world with less work, we will need a set of tools to influence our free time. Those can include leisure policies designed to help people spend their time in purposeful ways, opportunities for people who still want to work even if not for a wage, and requirements that people contribute to society in return for the support that society provides. These are some possible directions and thoughts that Daniel leaves us with.